Hi everyone and welcome into the Back to School with Google for Education AuNZ webinar. So this is the first in our Back to School webinar series. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. For our team members over there in Australia. And over here in New Zealand, in recognition that we are a binational team, Google also acknowledges Māori as tangata whenua, the original custodians, and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi partners of Aotearoa, New Zealand. We respect this history to our Māori, the Māori worldview, and commit to elevating the voices and experiences of Māori and communities through Google's products, platforms, and people. So this is an intro to our team. So we have a bunch of us across Australia and New Zealand. And also many of us are working across APAC now, and this one is also working across the International Impact team. So our commitment to helping schools transform teaching and learning takes on these four main pillars: enabling every education leader, empowering every educator, equipping every student, and evolving every day. And what we're looking at today revolves around that idea of the evolution of our tools. And today, we're going to have a look at Google Classroom. And Google for Education, of course, brings the best of Google to education to help transform teaching and learning. So for today's look at Classroom, we're going to have a quick look back. We're going to have a look at the Classroom difference. We're then going to dive into the latest updates and features. And then we're going to ask you to give us some feedback because, of course, feedback is a gift and we'd love to get your feedback on this webinar so we can help to focus other ones coming up soon as well. So jumping forward, we're going to have a look at Classroom where teaching and learning come together. So there is a really great set of tools here and resources to help you get set up for your start of the year. So 6 main steps for setting up your educators and Google Classroom. They are at that short link down the bottom here. Let me just turn on my laser pointer. There we go. At bit.ly classroom BTS. So that's bit.ly classroom BTS. So that's where you'll find those resources for you. Now, if we have a look at how many people across the world are using these tools, Classroom and the Assignments LTI are trusted by 150 million education leaders, teachers, and students worldwide. It's constantly evolving based on educator feedback, and I'll show you in a little bit where you can give us that feedback as well, right inside of Google Classroom. So I remember back over 10 years ago now, because Classroom has just turned 10 years old, when I was using Drive and Docs before Classroom, this is what you need to do. So you'd have to teach your students how to upload stuff into Drive, how to do an assignment, how to share it back with you, how to make copies, all those sorts of things. And that's what Classroom does automatically for teachers now. So it's certainly come a long way from the early days of using Docs inside of Classroom. Now, Classroom sits here at the center of everything. It's like your grand central station where everything lives and everyone knows to go there to get anything they need. So Classroom helps you to do away with lots of different tools, bringing it all into one space and making it really simple for educators, for students, and for guardians to find out where information is. Your school data always stays private. The data that's inside of your account is not used to train AI or large language models. It's not shared with other users or organizations. We don't use your data for advertising. Your data is owned and controlled by you, and you can delete it any time you want. It's encrypted at rest and encrypted in transit by default. And our privacy practices are audited against lots of different international standards. And remember that great point on the bottom, there have been 0 reported successful ransomware attacks on Chromebooks, and Workspace is recognized as one of the most secure cloud-based communication and collaboration suites. So the difference in for Classroom is that it has a seamless integration. It has powered by Google innovation, the wider Google company innovation. It has AI powered support. It gives you insight for your instruction, and we'll look at what that means very, very soon. It's very easy to get started, and it is a very, very cost effective tool for you to use. Now, there are also AI powered tools inside of Classroom that you can use for teaching and learning. So, practice sets, so interactive assignments that offer in the moment hints, interactive questions for YouTube videos that offer questions or AI suggested questions for teachers, and it helps students dig into these resources and learn a bit more about them at their own speed. And then read along in Classroom. Give students a reading buddy that provides feedback to them, but also feedback to the educator via a really user-friendly dashboard. So looking at Gemini inside of Classroom. So Gemini sits inside of Classroom. For those of you that have a Gemini for Workspace license, then you'll see some of these features sitting in there. And it's powered by LearnLM. That's our learning focused language model and set of AI tools, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, Graham from the Leo Academy Trust gives this really nice comment here that when they were looking at an LMS solution, it had the balance of being intuitive, but also incredibly powerful. Really easy to use, but really powerful. And it didn't require a lot of training for our staff. So they could get their children set up really, really quickly. And I remember when I used to use it in class, I'd simply give my students the join code, they put it in, they join the classroom, and we're off and running. So thinking about the classroom experience, there are these three main pillars: empowering teachers with things like classroom analytics, the Guardian previews, the flexible grading, the resources tab. Um, Also building that future and with LearnLM and Gemini in Classroom, enabling students with student groups, read along, practice sets, interactive questions, originality reports, and a bunch of accessibility features that are built into all the tools. And then supercharging leaders with integrations, and then also those classroom analytics, sharing links to templates, visiting classes, and we'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. So again, back to that point before, Classroom sits at the center of everything. It gives you access to all your different tools, making it really, really simple and streamlined. So that first thing we're looking at is that of empowering teachers. So giving educators time back to invest in themselves. So helping to make things a little bit easier, helping to streamline things where we can to give you more time to do what you do best, which is teach. So a really nice update that has happened quite recently is the ability for guardians to see their students' classwork page. So you see what we've done in the animation there. We've grabbed the link to the classroom page. Okay, so what we do there is we enable it for the classes, grab the link to share with guardians. There's our link, copy that, drop it into an email home, and it will email all the guardians the link to that page. That allows them a read-only access view into the class page. Now, the really interesting thing about that is that for a long time, people have loved our Guardian summary emails, but Guardians have asked, can we see what it looks like? This is a way to let that happen. More flexible grading periods and more flexibility and control with grading. So what we're talking about here is missing states. So if they are missing, what is the default mark they're going to get? Bulk grading. So if it's a handed in or not handed in, you could give everyone a bulk grade who has handed it in. And also the student view by grading period. You can have different periods, so you can set it up um, differently for term 1 to 4, for semesters, for 3-week long sessions. So you do have a lot of flexibility in your periods you set up. Now we're looking at here giving students direct feedback on their work. Now this is not new, but this is something I wanted to highlight because it is an incredibly powerful feature of Google Classroom. So what you can see here is that Tammy, the teacher, is putting in a direct comment onto Arnie's work here. So hiding some work, dropping in a comment based on that piece of work there. Now that means that the student is going to get direct feedback wherever they are, as long as they've got access to their classroom, from their teacher. Their teacher can do this from wherever they are as well and whenever they want to do it. So direct feedback, allowing for that feedback loop in the learning process. Inside the resources tab in Google Classroom is what's called is the resources tab, where you have your interactive lessons. Now you've got your practice sets sitting here, and you've got your YouTube interactive questions sitting here, and we'll look at both of those in a moment. Practice sets give that feedback to students when they need it and gives the analytics to the teacher. YouTube interactive questions gives the students a chance to engage with a YouTube clip, and also again gives some really good analytics back to the teachers. Now, the really nice thing about YouTube interactive questions is they will still work even if you have YouTube switched off for your students. So you can switch YouTube off for the students, on for the teachers. When you give them one of these YouTube interactive question activities, the students won't see any ads, they won't see any suggested videos, they can't get out to YouTube from here. So a couple of really nice focus points and safety and security points as well. Now, there is a form here which is bit.ly/GC pilot form, bit.ly/GC pilot form, which will allow you to express your interest in the assignment and student tracking progress aspect of Classroom. Now, what it does is it tags assignments with skills. That will also then bring that information into your mark book with those skills tags on them. So let's have a look at what Gemini in Classroom looks like. Now for this, you'll need a Gemini education license. When you have one of those licenses, you will see the following things popping up in your classroom. And I'll have a look at this in my one in a little bit of time as well. So the features inside a Classroom are powered by what we call Learn LM. That is our learning focused section of our AI team. It's based on the learning science principles, and there are a couple of really important points here. Inspire the active learning, metacognition, stimulating curiosity and adapting to the learner, but also managing the cognitive load for educators, helping them do more work, but helping them to reduce the workload to do that. If you'd like to improve LM or learn LM or have some more information about it, there is a link down the bottom there. So looking at the first example of Classroom, so save time and accelerate your lesson planning with what we call scaffolded prompts. So it steps you through a process of creating these lesson plans inside of Gemini and Classroom when you have that Gemini license. The next one we're looking at is creating assessments with Gemini inside a Classroom. So the grade, the number of questions, the topic, and then start to generate that for you inside of Classroom. Differentiating for different reading levels, so re-leveling texts that sit inside Classroom. How do you want to adjust it? What do you want to do to it? Add your text, then re-level that. And then capture attention and activate pure prior knowledge. So creating what's called a learning hook. So here's the hook and here's the information, then creating that hook inside it. Then how do we enable students inside of Workspace, inside of Classroom? So really we're looking at how do we make learning more personal with tools that engage and help to assess learning. We have this loop of assessing performance, differentiating instructions, and personalizing interventions, and then assessing, differentiating, personalizing. And assessing can be done in many different ways. Obviously, we're not just talking about formalized exams. So how do we assess their performance? How do we then change that instruction? How do we do some interventions? How do we reassess? So let's have a look at how we can do that with some tools. So this is looking at the interactive video activities inside of YouTube. So put a topic in, we choose our video, we can add some questions, or some of these may already have activity questions on them. So some curated videos already have those questions inside there. If not, then you can add your questions to it. So go into YouTube there in Classroom, put in a topic, search for that video, choose your video, add questions, push it out as an assignment. Classroom Analytics is built into Classroom if you have Education Plus, as you can see over there on the left. You can look at these analytics by class, by student, or by organizational unit. So what we can see is completion, average grade, active students. We can look at the class. We can look at the individual students down here as well. So in this animation, it shows you lots of different ways you can see those analytics. They are being done in the background. There is nothing the educator has to do to get access to these. So one of the biggest and most eagerly awaited updates is the ability to create student groups. So inside of your classroom, you can give an assessment or give some work to a group. Now, previously, you would choose the students individually, but what you can do is you can set up some groups. So over here, we've got the groups or the students we can choose from. So there are our groups set up. We can then push out that information or the assignments to those groups, making differentiation a lot easier. Now we're going to now move on to have a look at Read Along. So Read Along is available as a standalone app, or it is also now integrated inside of Classroom. So what you have here is the book, Dia is listening, and it's giving you the student feedback on their reading. Now if we jump across to the next one, let's have a look at what the educator experience looks like. So I click that there. So we create an assignment and we're going to choose a read along in there. We're going to choose this one as a Lexile level book. Have a look through it. If that's the right story, then attach it. Give some instructions, either all students, or if you want to differentiate it, give it to a student group. So one book to this group, one book to another group. Assign it, and the students read it inside of Classroom. So you can choose different styles of books as well, either phonics, lexiles, or decodables. Now we can also have a look at the progress of the students. So if we go into our grade book, we open one of the stories the students have read, we can then get some really quick feedback or some class insights about the reading of our students. Again, this is done in the background automatically. You can see an example of the reading. Choosing a student, we can jump into their reading there. Great for those parent-teacher conferences or student conferences as well. Gives you your reading progress and your comprehension across there as well. I'll show you what that also looks like in a little moment. So that reading feedback is a way of creating a reading report for every student in the background without you doing anything. So again, in a way, we're helping educators cut down on some admin to allow them to do the stuff they do best, having those great conversations with students and having more time to teach. So practice sets, here we go. We have practice sets sitting inside of Google Classroom. So what we do is we go into assignment, we create a new practice set, we'll send that out to our students and it will give them feedback when they want it. So what you can see in the animation here is what it looks like from a teacher point of view. So we've got the question, the fraction, we drop down to the skills down here. We then are going to pop some resources. So practice sets will pop some resources in for you. We can then go, let's just drop a text hint in there for our students. So drop a text hint in there, really simple little spur to help them with their learning. Drop it in there. We can reorder these as well. So we might want to have a card, then that note, then we might want to have a YouTube clip at the end. So that's what practice sets looks like inside of Google Classroom, and it is available for you now if you have Education Plus or the Teaching and Learning Upgrade. Now, another great update to Classroom, and this is specifically around practice sets, is the ability to import a Google form and then convert it into a practice set. We know that lots of people have a lot of work inside of Google Forms. You build up a large repertoire of these resources. So now you are able to import a Google form into practice sets, and then it's sitting inside of Classroom. You'll also see that you're able to upload an image to a practice set as well. So put an image in there, ask a question about it. So a couple of really big updates to practice sets there that occurred last year that you may or may not have seen. Moving on. So this is another look at creating those interactive video activities with AI suggested questions. So that is for the Education Plus, the Teaching and Learning upgrade. That's exactly the same one we saw before, just sitting in here in that differentiation section. So there are our questions that sit across that video. Remembering, YouTube can be turned off for students. This will still work. No ads, no suggested videos. Now, Originality Reports also sits inside Classroom. Now, this is not a new feature, but it's one I wanted to highlight because it's a super powerful and super useful feature. So you can switch on the Originality Checker when you do an assignment inside of Classroom. All you got to do is tick a little box. It will then run the Originality Report. Now, that is available for all editions. Now, if you have Education Plus, then you also have the ability to check across everything that's been handed into your school prior to that time. So internal matches as well as external matches. Another fantastic point about this is that when students go to hand in their work, if the educator has switched on the Originality Report, students will be prompted to run it for themselves. So they can check the Originality Report for themselves before they hand it in. Change it, run it again, change it, run again. So they get 3 options to run their Originality Report before they hand it in, as you can see in that little image there. So Originality Reports live inside of Google Classroom. Again, educators don't need to do anything. It does it automatically for them when you just tick that little box. Now, this is a really, again, requested update. This is the ability to share links to class templates or to classwork pages. What that means is if I am the literacy expert in my school, I can create a template page or a page based on something. I can then click export classwork, choose which one I export, and it's going to give me a link, which I can then send to my colleagues across my department or across my school. They can then import that classwork into their Google Classroom. So it's the ability to create templates for your school or for your department or for your syndicate, or to have an expert at your school create literacy, maths, reading, whatever they want as a page and then export it and share it with other teachers, and they can import it all and it's ready to go. Now, Class Visit is also inside of Education Plus. What it allows you to do is to visit a class. Now, what you can see here is the process that we go through. Now, what's going to happen here is someone who has the rights to visit a class is able to click on the visit a class button. So what they've done here is they've searched for David's class. They're going to jump into his English 101. They're going to fill out this form to say why they're visiting, and David will get notified of that. Do that, visit the class, and then they're in hit the class there. They can then post something for him, or they could add a new co-teacher, for instance. A great use case of this is, say David is away, he's away ill, he can't get in to do any work setting because he is sick and can't come to school. He lets the person at school know, the person who looks after the relief teachers or the cover teachers. They can click visit a class, jump in, either post some work for him, or they can then add a co-teacher in here and they can then do that for them. So you might add a relief teacher as the co-teacher. When David comes back, he can simply kick that teacher out. So it gives people who are in an admin group the ability to visit a class temporarily. So that's called visit a class. Inside of Google Classroom, there are also some fantastic integrations. What these are other apps that work inside of Classroom. So you do the work inside of Classroom, the student stays inside of Classroom without jumping out to another app. This makes things nice and safe and secure and means you don't get data leakage across different apps. So what you can see here are a whole lot of apps that are integrated with Classroom. So Nearpod, Edpuzzle, we have Cami in there, Screencastify, iExcel, lots and lots of different things. So Education Perfect is sitting down there as well. Now, what that means is these can be used to provide another source of work. So you might have an Education Perfect account, you set up your tasks in there, bring it over into Classroom, the students do the work inside of Classroom. So that's having a look at all these updates to Classroom. I know that was a lot and it was really, really quick. But what I'm going to show you here is kind of how this looks for you. So if I have a little look, so this is a snapshot of one of my classes, and we'll have a look at a couple of the main points I've highlighted already. So visit a class sits up the top here. So because I am in the admin group for this school, I can visit a class. Not everyone will have access to that. You must be allowed access. The next one to have a look at is this box down here. Here is the school analytics. Again, because I'm in the admin group, I can look at the school's analytics. Not everyone can look at that. I'll show you where your individual ones are in a minute. Our resources sit here, so that's our practice sets, our YouTube interactive questions. And then here is our Gemini education tab. So that is where our Gemini functionality sits if we have Gemini for education, workspace for education licensing. Okay, so there's a Gemini licensing will give us this access. Next one to look at is over on the right-hand side. Here is where my classroom analytics sit. So that gives the information for my classes. Then we have the calendar, the drive, and of course the settings. The last thing here is the classwork. So if I want to share my classwork page with the Guardians, that's where I would click to do that, as we saw on some of those previous pages. Let's jump forward and have a look at an assignment. So if I've clicked create a new assignment, this is the page that will pop up. The important points to look at are here. Here are our attachments down here. We've got our YouTube interactive questions that we're going to attach, our practice sets, and our read along. We can also upload, we can choose drive as well, or we can drop a link in. But here's where we would attach things into our assignment. Here's our add-ons sitting across here. So I could attach a Google Arts and Culture, Adobe Express, a Kahoot. So these are the add-ons I have inside of my classroom. Up here, we can assign to all students or to a group. So that's where we would do the group assignment for our differentiation. Our marking categories sit here. Our grading period sits here. So we could have term 1, 2, 3, 4. We could have semester 1 and 2. We could have just a 3-week window when there is a course on. So we can set those grading periods. Next one down is we would check our plagiarism. Just tick that little box there. And if I was going to use a rubric for my marking, I can add a rubric there. I can either make a new rubric, I can reuse a rubric, I can import one from Sheets. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over and have a look at my classroom now. So I'll pop over into this tab. So this is inside my classroom. So you see I have visit a class up here, my analytics. So if I click on that, I will go to my school analytics. And then down here is my Gemini education. If I click this opens my Gemini education tab. Now this is because I have a Gemini license. So not everyone will see this. If you don't have a Gemini license, you won't see this. So I can do a lesson plan, generate a quiz, relevel a text, create that lesson hook, the starter, or now create a vocab list for that topic. If I then want to have a look at one of my classes, I'll jump back over to my main classroom page. There's some information I'll talk about my practice sets there. I'm going to jump over to my demonstration classes. So here is my demo class. So once I'm inside my class, up here is my analytics link. So if I click that, it will take me to my analytics page. I can choose what area of time I want to have a look at my analytics. With all my students down there, if I scroll to the bottom, It's going to give me some information about that. I can then jump in and visit a class if I want to as well. So that's where my classroom analytics sit inside of my own class. Now remember, I can look at this with my assignment completion rate, my average mark, my active students. Now these students have not been very active, you can see in the last 90 days. If I scroll down, there we go, in the last year, we have some analytics around the students. Assignment completion 61%, average mark at active students. I can then jump down the bottom here and I can have a look at my classes. I can have a look at my students, each of my students through there, or I can jump into look at an organizational unit. So I could click into, let me have a look into Bruce Wayne. If I want to look at Bruce, I can then jump in and have a look specifically at his work here. So this enables a really good conversation with parents and guardians and caregivers. Let's jump back across to my class, where I'm inside my classwork. If I go create assignment, this is where I would choose my students, my groups, my due date, my topic, my marking, all those things down there I talked about. If I want to do a read along, I'm going to go read along. What it will then do is it will start up read along inside of Classroom. Remember, read along can be used outside as a standalone app or at the read along on the web, read along with Google, or inside of Classroom to get the analytics that are inside here. Now I've decided I want to go for a decodable text. So I'll click that. It's going to narrow down my selection. And you can see here what the different decodables are. There are some phonics skills that are over here as well. So if I wanted to look specifically at contractions, I can look at that, and there are a couple of books that are specifically on contractions. I click that book. I'm going to attach that. So here we have the skills, who it's written by, who it's published by. I can jump into some more info. If I'm ready to go, I just go attach, and it's ready for my students to use. But I won't do that this time. So that's how we do read along inside a classroom. YouTube, we sit there, we click on YouTube. We then either can go to our already used ones, or we can create a new one. This one here I've already done. It's got 6 questions on it. I'll click that, and that will add this YouTube interactive questions. There we go. There are my questions. Attach, and off we go. So this is where we can find our YouTube interactive questions, and our practice sets all live through here as well. I'm going to jump back one more because I don't want to create one over right now. But if I go back to my classwork, what it will do is it will take me back to that main page. Now, once we have created some reading resources, we can jump into our marks page and then have a look at our books that we have given our students to read. So if I look at this one, I've just clicked into it. So the book is Little Sock and the Tiny Creatures. My students have handed in 4. I've marked 3. You'll see this little toggle here says accepting submissions. I can switch that off, which means they can no longer hand anything in. Now I can go up here to my class insights, and that's where it's going to create me this reading report for each student. So it's just opening up read along now. The AI is doing its stuff in the background, and it will open up the reading report. So here is the reading report for this book. I can scroll through and look at comprehension. There are questions through there as well. Now, if I want to look specifically, say, at Walter's reading, here is Walter's reading report through here. Now, Chris Betcher, you can see, has created this for us by giving his students his books and his students reading them for him. So we have his accuracy, some stats here about the accuracy, the comprehension, the overall progress. So what we're looking at is the reading progress in the last 5 books, the accuracy, comprehension, completion, speed, the measurements of Lexile that are down the bottom there. So this is creating this in the background as your students read the books, using the power of AI to create these reports for you. So that's a look at the reading reports that are available inside of Google Classroom. So inside of your classroom, there are many, many things that are helping to support teaching and learning. Because a lot of this is shareable and reusable, it's cutting down the amount of work you need to do to create those fantastic learning opportunities for your students. So Google Classroom continues to evolve, and it's evolving based on feedback. Now, one thing I do want to show you is how to give that feedback. So I'm just going to jump back over to my classroom. You'll see down the bottom right, there is this, this question mark here. If I click that question mark, it allows me to give feedback to the classroom team based on either how I'm feeling about something working, if there is a problem, or even if there was something I'd love to see in there. If you want to give direct feedback to the team, please use that question mark, and you'll find that on most tools. So that's how Classroom continues to evolve. Everything updates in the background. There's nothing you have to do to get the newest tools possible. So how do we upskill ourselves around this? One thing you can do is you can go and do this Google Classroom course. The link to this is bit.ly/GC skills. So Google Classroom skills, bit.ly/GC skills will take you to an online self-paced upskilling or refreshing course that you can do or your teachers can do. Now, also, we have an amazing resource called the Google for Education Navigator. Now, you can sign up for personalized updates to your inbox or find a whole lot of other resources in here as well. That short link is bit.ly/edu resource finder. So bit.ly/edu resource finder will take you to this page where you can help to find these resources. And last but definitely not least, thank you very much for your time today. Either those of you who joined us live or those of you who are watching this recording of the session. We'd love to get some feedback on what was covered. There's also some space here to let us know if there's something more you'd like to find out, or if you'd like to dive a bit deeper into some of the stuff we looked at today, because we covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. There is a lot of information on Classroom. There have been a lot of fantastic updates. So we'd love to get some feedback from you at bit.ly BTS webinar 25. So bit.ly/BTS webinar 25, or scan that QR code there that I've created in Chrome, because you can create that direct from Chrome, remember? So if you can please give us some feedback based on whether you watch this live or the recording at bit.ly BTS webinar 25. We'd love to have the feedback from you. So thank you very much for your time today. I hope that was useful. If you join us live, you can go and grab the recording and rewind some of it and have a look at it again. Or if you're watching this, feel free to share the registration page so people can get to this as well. So have a great end of your holidays. You've definitely deserved it. Recharge yourself well, ready for 2025, and we look forward to working with you more in 2025. If you have any information, or sorry, if you have any questions, please reach out to the Google for Education team. We'll be only too happy to help. Thanks, folks. Ka kite anō. See you next time.